Hi there, Denise. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, David. How are you?
Welcome today. Yes, it's good. I'm a white shirt and a white background, so I don't know how that's going to go down. My video people will be disappointed with me, but no, it's good to have you here and to get you kind of involved. For everyone listening, we've got Denise Mcgrath here with us today. She's a very experienced program manager in the financial services and technologies industry. So we're going to talk about that a bit more in the chat. As you know, GCS is a technology staffer. We've got offices across the UK and Europe and the US. And GCS Connect is our opportunity to kind of build our community of innovative people, expert talent, working with the best kind of companies out there. And we do one of these ways we do it is the Leader Series. I think we're up to about kind of 15, 16 episodes now. Which is where we speak to senior people within the network and really understand kind of where they're at within the business world, within the community, within technology. And I'm really interested to get kind of Denise on board. Denise has told me she started in IT in the early 80s. And I'm really, really interested to find out. I'm working as kind of a team leader, web developer, program manager within the financial services and various different other industries. She's worked as a contractor since 2014. Last contract was with Virgin Money, and she's currently kind of looking for work. So one of the things we're going to be talking about today is kind of job seeking and doing a job search during COVID, and the pros and cons of that. Denise, obviously I've introduced yourself, but do you just want to take us through a little bit about your background, kind of what you've done, what you're kind of interested in, and where you're up to at this moment in time?
Yeah. So I started off working for Honeywell, which you may have heard of, to do with heating controls. Lots of people have Honeywell heating controls, but they also used to have an information services division, and I joined as a trainer, believe it or not, straight out of university. I stayed there a couple of years, and then I went into programming, and I programmed in a large number of languages, starting off in the distant past in assembler. I've been through Fortran and COBOL and BASIC and C and C++ and C Sharp, and eventually I became a team leader, and then got much more interested in the delivery side rather than the programming side of project work. So my first project management role was a long time ago at NatWest, funnily enough, in Manchester, very near the hallowed Old Trafford football ground, which is not my team. I'm just saying.
What's your team, Denise?
Chelsea.
Chelsea.
Oh, okay. Yes, I'm a London girl. I've lived in Manchester longer than I lived down south, but I'm still a Chelsea girl.
I'm an Arsenal fan. It's good to know.
Oh no! Oh no!
Hang up now, but yes.
Well, apart from that, you seem a really nice person.
Yeah, that's right. I am quite a nice person. I think they call us a long-suffering Arsenal fan. So yeah.
Oh bless. Yeah.
We win some stuff sometimes. So, yeah.
Yeah, I know you do. So yeah, I got into project management first of all at NatWest, and that was my first contract as well. I went contracting at NatWest. At the time, my husband ran his own company, so I had the opportunity to be in or out of work.
Sure.
I went contracting. At the point where he retired, I then went back permanent. Yeah. And I did that at JD Williams, which is it's a retail company. It used to be largely catalogue, now largely online.
Okay, yeah.
They did dip their toes into bricks and mortar about the time I left, 2014, but they've all closed now. It seems strange that bricks and mortar companies were all getting online, and an already online company decided to try bricks and mortar. But hey, you've got to try these things to see whether they're right for you.
Yeah, that's right. And I think, no one could have predicted what was going to kind of happen. So it probably seemed like having a few stores where it might be open could work. But I think that's all kind of gone out the window in the retail world. I live in Reading, so I was walking through Reading the other day, thinking, oh, that's closed down. Oh, that's closed down. So yeah, I don't really know how it's all going to kind of turn out in the next kind of 3-6 months. But I know the Debenhams isn't there in Reading anymore, and that was quite a big shop. So yeah.
Yeah, it's there in Bury, which is it's just outside of Manchester, which is where I live. But they seem to be having less and less stock in stores, so I don't know whether it will survive.
Yeah.
But, I don't think that we can go completely online. There are too many people who like to browse. It's my favourite hobby.
Yeah,
so.
that's right. Yeah. No, totally. And I think matching that, matching up the two, the kind of how to put it, the real physical world with the online world is, I think, one of the key things that we'll all have to do. I mean, banks have done it quite a lot, haven't they? And you've worked obviously.
Indeed, yeah.
People don't go into their branches anymore, but if you want to go into a branch, the bank has to kind of provide it, really. Particularly the old school banks. Maybe like Revolut or Monzo or whatever don't need to do that at all, but NatWest and those types of people have to, don't they? So.
Yeah, I mean, CYBG, Virgin Money, so it's Clydesdale Yorkshire Banking Group and Virgin Money, who completed their merger last year. They are rationalising branches, but they're not getting rid.
No.
The personal touch, I think, is important, particularly in finance. Looking someone in the eye is a much easier way of knowing whether you trust them or not, and that goes for both the vendor and the customer.
Yeah.
So I don't think it will disappear.
Right balance, isn't it? Because at the
same
time, there's so much stuff you can do now on your banking apps, travel apps. Even the NHS now is moved towards a kind of a hybrid version.
Yeah.
Those it's important that people are able to do that, because, like, for instance, always think about the NHS. Why is it not possible to do a GP appointment on a video conference? Obviously there's a reason why you might want to go into the GP, but there's also a number of reasons why you don't need to wait 3 weeks for an appointment, right? So you need to
particularly in the mental health area, where they don't need to take your temperature, they don't need to take your blood pressure. They need to talk to you and see what's going on.
So, you've obviously had, I won't say this too much, Denise, because I don't think I should, but you've obviously had to overcome a number of different kind of challenges as a leader within your businesses. We're obviously, hopefully, coming out of a particularly challenging time, but I don't think that's necessarily going to be the same in the economy. What other, would you say, significant business challenges have you been through as a leader in your time within IT and as a manager?
So they mostly all have been around conflict. Okay. Whether that be a hostile takeover, so you have people from two different companies who need to join into a single structure, and you need to get the best person for each role, irrespective of whether they were in the takeover company or the one being taken over. Overcoming prejudices around, this is the way we've always done it, therefore this is the way we should do it, when they're coming from two completely different cultures, is always interesting. And I have watched some of your other podcasts, and one of them struck a chord with me, where it was the chap from Connects who was saying that it all comes down to communication, and it really does. No matter what the conflict, getting people to talk to each other, understanding what it is they want, and helping them along the path to achieving it is always going to resolve most conflicts. If there's a deep-seated prejudice there, then that's not something I'm qualified to deal with, because I'm not a psychologist. Psychologist. But in the normal business world, where you're talking professional people who are all looking to do a good job, because obviously we don't come to work to do a bad job, we come to do a good job, providing a safe space to have the right conversations is always the best way forward, in my humble opinion,
Yeah.
and has always worked for me in the past.
Yeah.
And that isn't saying that there's a one size fits all, because everyone is different, obviously. Some people like the arm around the shoulder. Some people respond better to a challenge. Why aren't you able to do this? What would you do to resolve the situation? And some people, you need to talk to them and prep them before a major meeting in order to make sure that everyone understands what the purpose of the meeting is and how we can reach a resolution. So, sorry, I've got to fly. Communication is always the key.
They always join you in the office, don't they?
Don't they just? And I've got to say, there hasn't been one all morning that obviously wants to get on the telly.
I've actually got my own fly swatter. It doesn't seem to happen so much in the office, but I've got my own fly swatter at home. I've become pretty good at like, bang. Although I saw, I know we get back to the thing, but I saw an article the other day in the paper where the guy swatted a fly and then his gas boiler was faulty. So he swatted the fly, upset the gas boiler, and his whole house blew up.
Oh my word.
Yeah, it's one of those comedy, like, well, he's fine, he just had a like, burn on his hands, but there you go. But yeah, I think, I mean, to kind of go back to that, the kind of conflict element and prepping people up and making sure you know where people are, I guess, as well, is very important. You know, someone else in one of the previous things, I think it was David McGovern, talked about reading the room, you know, and knowing, you know, who's on board, who's not on board, who's willing and open to change. You know, you're good at that as a manager, don't you?
You do. And it's always good to not ask a question unless you know the answer.
Yeah, yeah. So
research is always a very important part of any meeting where you are hoping to achieve something within the meeting.
Yeah.
And that could be as simple as a paper, just writing a paper with the problem statement, the background, and a number of potential solutions to the problem, so that you don't start with a blank piece of paper. And it tends to get people's intellectual juices running as well. So yeah, preparation, reading the room, controlling the meeting. So it's all, I think the benefits of a good facilitator are not always recognised. Having someone who will keep you on point, who will ensure that everyone gets a fair crack of the whip in terms of being able to state their opinion and keeping meetings on time. I think that's a skill not a lot of people have, and it's much easier to have a separate facilitator in the meeting rather than for the chair to try and do both, because then you don't do either way.
And as a manager, as you've kind of looked over the kind of years, obviously I know you've kind of worked more kind of agile projects and that sort of thing kind of recently, and different methodologies, et cetera, do you think that the IT has moved towards that more collaborative kind of way of working, or
successful IT departments and projects have? Yeah, absolutely. The sum of the parts is usually greater than the individuals. And it's a powerful thing to be able to bounce ideas off people, and having a different mix of people in the room. People who are detail orientated can, if not controlled properly, slow a meeting down, but they also can spot the flaws and bring out the risks that need to be mitigated, or at least noted and monitored. So
having those, like, all these 4 core personalities, aren't there, and having all 4 of those personalities all together.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I know you're looking around for work at the moment. Obviously, we will talk later, but you've obviously got friends and colleagues and people that you kind of work with and that sort of thing, and obviously you read about it. How are you planning differently for the success of your career and the kind of transformation, which is the kind of key area that you work in now that we're in this new kind of remote post-COVID world. Have you thought about that? I mean, have you spoken about that in some of the interviews, that sort of thing?
Indeed. So I'm very lucky. I've got a reasonably large house. My husband has an office. I've now co-opted what was one of my children's bedrooms. They've now got their own house.
Yeah.
That's now my office. So I've set up a space that is for work only.
Yeah.
I think that's really important. It's not my bedroom. It is a bedroom. It's not my bedroom. It's somewhere that I will go to work, and I go to set up interviews and write applications and troll for work. But then can leave and close the door and be somewhere else. So I also think, particularly from a program senior project management point of view, in person is also important.
Yes.
So I do believe that maybe half of the week could be, well, two days out of 5 could be in the office and 3 at home, or the other way around, depending on how many people you're mentoring, the strength and depth of the team, the experience that you need to bring to help the program along. So either 2 or 3 days in the office, but I do believe that the office is still an important place to do work.
Particularly for the stuff that you talked about at the start of this conversation, you know, when people's passions are high, when you're trying to drive change where people don't agree, when you're trying to drive transformation to something new which people feel is forced upon them or they're not entirely happy with, you know. A lot of what we've had the conversations are is that possible to do in a kind of remote environment, because you don't quite know, do you? There's lots of pros that you can reach out to anyone at any time. You don't have to be in the same place to see them, and a video call, now we've all kind of accepted it, is so much more personal than a telephone call, isn't it? But it's never going to be
definitely
around a room. Although I have seen something on Teams recently where you can actually you basically press a button and it basically makes everyone go into a room around a table. So it looks like they're all in the room together with you. So
wow. I've not seen that.
It's a bit of a
Does it make
I did it. I was like, wow, we're all in the room together with our faces and stuff. So that was quite good. So,
did that make it easier to follow who was talking, going from one person to another? Because that's one of the things I find disconcerting when there's a multi-person Zoom or team meeting or whatever, is that it's not as easy to catch the reactions of the other people in the meeting when there's one person talking, because you can do that in a room, can't you?
Yeah, exactly, and you can see who's not talking, and you can kind of
who's disagreeing but not saying so.
You can direct your conversation towards someone, or you can see
Absolutely.
Chats, that sort of thing. So I think all of these video call manufacturers, developers are starting to add in, like Zoom's got breakout rooms now, so you can kind of break out. Okay, we'll have a chat and then come back. It's quite good for training, that sort of thing. But like you said, having that kind of live contact, I think, is really, really important. So so kind of going into this new world. Obviously, I think you finished your contract with Virgin Money in March.
I did.
And you know, we're speaking to you about a position at the moment, which is progressing quite nicely. But how have you found it? I mean, you're the first person that I've spoken to so far who has been looking for work during lockdown, which I can only imagine is challenging, to say the least, for various reasons. So how have you actually kind of found it? What has been the experience for you, and what advice can you give to other people who are doing it now?
So the first piece of advice is get yourself a top-notch CV. Yep. So I had my CV professionally rewritten for me.
Okay. Yep.
Which it was, I'm thinking is £400, I think.
Okay. Wow. Yep.
Which seems an awful lot of money.
I've seen it, Denise. I've seen that CV, and it is a good one. So yeah.
Thank you. And they did my LinkedIn profile as well to match it. So it was a chunk of money, but it was money very well spent.
Yeah.
Second thing is I have maintained a relationship with all the people who have got me jobs in the past, and I've been working those relationships. If I tell you that I interviewed for my first contract in 2014, and then I haven't needed to interview again until now.
Moved around between
because I've
referral, mouth, and that sort of thing, which is excellent.
So project directors have come and got me again, all the way through to now. But now they are also in a less stable position than they were. Yeah. So I'm on my own for the first time for 6 years. Yeah. So I've restricted myself to 3 consultancies, three recruitment consultancies, because I would hate for my CV to end up on the same desk from 2 different sources.
Yeah. I mean, because you've seen it from the other side.
I have
done the recruitment yourself and
exactly,
so you know how it should come across.
Exactly, yeah. And I'm being very careful about what I apply for as well, because I know that there are an enormous number of people in my position. There was a particular role that I applied for about 6 weeks ago. It was for 2 positions, and there were 7,500 applications.
Wow. Yeah.
Now that's just too difficult to work through for the hiring company. So I'm making sure that I don't irritate anyone by applying for a position that I'm not really, it's not in my comfort zone. I want to make sure that I a match, at least a match.
I don't think I'm talking out of turn in saying that we know with project managers, program managers, the more kind of leadership areas of a project, where you move away from hard technical skills towards more like non-specific skills, then it increases the range of applicants that you get, but you're still going to kind of filter down to the ones that really match. And I think it's definitely a very good, although it must be frustrating sometimes to say no to things that you probably could do, but try to focus in on the ones that you really, really match, because like you said, there's a lot of competition out there, isn't there? Even though
there is
very good competition as well, with very specific,
excellent competition. Yeah. And in previous job searches, I would not have been looking to match quite as closely as I am at the moment. But it's as detailed as in the financial world, in banking. I know a lot about mortgages. I've done some anti-money laundering and fraud stuff, but I wouldn't apply for an anti-money laundering or fraud position, because there will be people who have as much experience in that area as I have in mortgages. So it's just not worth my time, and I don't want to waste the recruiter's time either.
But I guess from what you're saying is that we are seeing jobs, and there are opportunities there.
There are, and there were more permanent than contract. There are now a lot more contract opportunities coming up, and I think that will continue. However, from my own personal point of view, I'm not a fan of inside IR35 because I think it's the worst of both worlds. I have never been a fan of a fixed term contract, because that's neither one thing nor the other.
That's right, yeah.
So I'm restricting my search to outside IR35 contracts or permanent, with my preference being permanent, because I know that the government has spent an awful lot of money in supporting us all through COVID, and they need to get that money back, and it's going to come in taxes. I know they're going to have a look at increasing corporation tax. They will get very strict with IR35, and I just feel that permanent is probably the better way to go now, as I have done a couple of times before, where contracting just got
Yeah, and I think as we're kind of coming out of that, it's good to have that. I think the important thing about permanent is that you're probably more part of the business. You know,
Yeah,
you're at that leadership level. You're linked into what the business strategy is, as opposed to being brought into to complete one strand, deliver on one strand. So therefore,
yeah,
you know, I think that those are the types of people that will be kind of more secure, but also maybe get more satisfaction in their job because they've helped to
yeah,
build the business back from X place and hopefully to even more successful
absolutely.
point of view.
Certainly much more interesting roles
Yeah,
because, as you say, when you're a contractor, a true contractor,
yeah,
you're on a single program of work to deliver a set of deliverables, a statement of work type set of deliverables.
yeah. Done it
So
twice.
it's very focused.
Mm.
Whereas getting a transformation role as a permanent employee, well, the world's your oyster.
Yeah, that's right.
It's
There's multiple transformations you can kind of keep moving through, isn't it? So,
exactly,
yeah,
exactly. And transformation is is my baby. That's what I love to do.
yeah,
I used to love programming. I now love transformation programs.
yeah. There's a lot of transformation ongoing at the moment. So yeah,
Yeah,
and
and I think COVID will encourage there to be more. A lot of companies are going to need to have that dual location working, so from home and in office.
yeah,
Um, and I think that they'll need to transform their IT infrastructure and their ways of working and their processes and procedures to match that. There's going to be a lot of work coming up. I have a lot of faith that I'm going to get something and I'm going to get it quite
yeah.
soon. And that all those in my position who are good will also get something soon.
I'm sure they will. I mean, we've been in the industry many years, both of us, and we
Yeah,
know that there's ups and downs, and it starts to kind of come back, doesn't it? But transformation drives business, technology drives business now, and obviously
yeah.
if you're in that area, then you've just got to kind of align yourself to the types of transformations happening. What do you see as the kind of the real kind of opportunities kind of going forward for the technology industry as we come out of this now? Where do you think the key areas are of growth?
Everyone's going to need to be connected. So companies in the main are. People, not necessarily so.
Okay.
So I think, and I think it won't just be business either. Like you were saying earlier, I think it makes a huge amount of sense for the NHS to start using this technology, to start doing video calls with doctors and consultants and so on. And that gives you a much wider geography of people that you could consult with. If you don't need to be there, you don't need to get there in person.
No.
It doesn't matter where the doctor is, where the consultant is, where the nurse is. It could be anyone. So you could perhaps even take it wider than the UK. You have Follow the Sun servicing and call centres for a lot of companies that are worldwide, and they have call centres in different time zones. Well, maybe there's even that could be done.
And I think that allows so much change and difference. But definitely, I think that connectivity, making sure that people are connected, making sure that people understand that. I think it's like a watershed moment, isn't it?
It
Whatever
is.
happens, there'll be economic fallout, there'll be maybe political fallout, that sort of thing. But in the end, it's a watershed moment. If you think about it, how can you go back to how it was once you realise that most of your work or most of your life you can pretty much do from home because, as you said, you're connected.
Yeah.
So because you're connected, nothing's ever going to be the same again. You realise actually I can do all of this, without being in this place where I used to be getting connected. So yeah,
Yeah, I do think that the infrastructure needs to get better though. So Wi-Fi, I'm actually in my daughter's house at the moment
okay.
rather than my own because I've just put my granddaughter down for a sleep. I've been looking after her
Very well
today.
behaved.
Yeah. Fortunately, my husband's here to
Okay.
pin her down if she wakes up too soon. But the Wi-Fi here isn't as good as it is half a mile away in my house. And if you go a little bit further out, it's much worse. I think if we want people to work remote, we need to give them the tools to do so. The other thing I'd say is technology companies need to get smarter about making their technology easier to install and use. If we want non-technical people to be using this technology, then we've got to make it easier for them. Microsoft Windows did a plug and play thing years and years and years ago, where a new piece of hardware, you plug it in and it would install itself. We need to get back to that. I think things have got so clever now that you've got to do a whole load of steps to get something to work. Well, get your clever people working out how to do that by just pressing a button and it's installed.
Yeah, and I definitely think that that would help everything. It's a little bit like the easier you make things, going back to mortgages. Mortgages is a process. You can follow through that process. We know there's legal elements to it, but you could make the online mortgage application process so much easier, like you said, for everyone. Couldn't you?
I would suggest that you have a look at Yorkshire Building Society's implementation, which is the one I did before Virgin Money, where you can get to offer in a day.
Wow. Yeah. And that's
in a day.
Want, isn't it? And that's what people expect in this day and age, don't they?
Yeah. And you can have a virtual valuation. You can have online legals done. It's beautiful.
Yeah, fantastic.
I'm not saying that the mortgage rates are any good. I'm just saying that the process is smooth, very smooth.
And what advice, therefore, would you give to program managers working within a kind of transformation project at the moment, from what you've seen, in the past, and knowing what difficulties people are going through now? What do you think are the most important things for them to kind of concentrate and focus on?
Flexibility and living with uncertainty. I think if you get used to the fact that things not only can change, they will change mid-flight, and get used to, I don't like this word very much, but it explains what I mean, brainstorming a solution with as many of your good people as you can, then that will serve you well for being able to deliver what it is that you're trying to deliver. The other thing that I've always said is that you have to have a good business plan. So you need to know what it is you're trying to achieve, what it is you're trying to deliver, what benefits you're expecting to get from that, how much it's going to cost, and whether the benefits are greater than the costs. And that document needs to live. It isn't something you do at the start to go and get the funds to do your program. It's something you have to be checking all the way through. Not in a Prince 2 way where there's gates and things, but just refer back to it. I tend to do it 2 to 4 weekly, depending on the size of the program. Just reminding yourself what you're trying to achieve, reminding yourself what you're expecting to get out of it, and what the financial costs are as you go along. And you'll then know your story, and when things change, have a much better chance of picking out the areas where you can make the changes to accommodate the new world that you've just had land in your lap.
And it's very interesting. I think, and I guess you need to make sure that you have real kind of at that level, real input and agreement from C-level, the C-suite, as it were, to make sure that you're not working. Because otherwise you're going to deliver something and say, well, I didn't want that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it really should come from them in the first place, the vision, and all you've got to do is to ensure that you have sold to your senior directors how your solution is going to meet their vision.
Yeah, it's interesting when you think about the whole project management, program management, because quite a lot of it is selling, isn't it? You know, this
Yes.
is the best way to do it. And this is
Yes.
why I need this investment. This is why I need these people, and it's all going to be great, but I need these things. You need to buy
Yeah.
people into your vision, don't you? Really?
You do. And it's not just the people on the project team. You also need to get the buy-in from the people you're delivering to. I don't mean the directors who've come up with the vision. I mean the feet on the ground, the people who are going to be using the outputs from your program to do their everyday jobs. You need to make sure that they understand how it's going to make their life better, why they should buy into it.
One last question I have for yourself, and this links into kind of the recruitment and staffing industry and the technology industry, but I think society is a wider thing. Obviously, you've been working in IT as a woman since 1981, and I would probably suggest it's only really in the last 4 to 5 years that there's been a really big kind of push to change the dial, as it were, on the equality. You know, the kind of male-dominated industry. It's quite kind of interested in everything you've said up to now, and looking kind of going forward. First off, how do you view that? Do you think it has improved? Do you think there is more opportunities for women? Do you think it is less male dominated than it was maybe in the early 80s?
It is 100% less dominated now by men than it was when I joined.
Yeah.
40 years ago. Oh my God.
Is that it wouldn't be hard to change from that very, very low point, Denise, or?
No, it wasn't. I have personally never found it an issue, because I've never accepted that there's any difference between the abilities of men and women in the area that I work in. But I have to say that I haven't had many female bosses. I haven't had role models to look up to that are female in the higher echelons. And that is still mostly the case in the banking and finance world that I've been in. However, in retail, when I was at JD Williams, we had a female CEO. So
excellent.
Towards the end, it started off with a male one.
Slow change. And
you
know, do you think that that coming out of this, that this will drive that change? That there will be more kind of opportunities and it will be more equal. I mean, I know it's a lot in the news and stuff at the moment, but do you feel this will help? I mean, you're a role model now, Denise, so you're one of those people. So, you know, what do you think?
Well, funnily enough, my son followed me into project management. My daughter hasn't. She's a teacher, but she's a maths teacher, so still sciencey. Do I think this will help? I think no, I don't. If I'm honest, I don't think this will make any difference to the gender challenges that there are. I think it might make a difference to things like ability challenges, because if you can work from home, then it opens up an awful lot of work to a lot of people who found working in offices difficult for whatever reason.
Yeah, that's right.
I do believe that because we're going to be needing to use technology a great deal more, there'll be more work eventually once the economy recovers. So I think it will help that there's more work to be done. Therefore, most people who are good will get a job. But yeah, no, I don't think that COVID is going to make any difference to the pay gap between men and women.
Yeah, I think it's. I think it would be wrong to kind of just assume that straight away. But I think it's definitely part of an ongoing conversation, and outside COVID and outside lockdown, just in terms of people being a lot more aware of all of these issues of diversity.
Absolutely, yeah.
And being able to discuss it a lot more, and kind of call it out a lot more, I think, than potentially they would have been able to in the past. So, hopefully that's moving in the right direction. I think from us,
I agree.
from us as recruiters, we get asked the question. I was asked by a client the other day, like, diversity, how can you help this? And I always think it kind of goes back to, like you were just saying there, education. We can only, unless we proactively go towards one side, we can only deal with the candidates we get. We can't invent candidates. Well,
No.
recruitment agencies do tend to sometimes, but the less said of that, the better. But you can't invent them, so we can only work with the candidates that we've got, I think. And I think it starts, like you said, it's a societal thing of what industries, what areas for people to kind of go into, and then, like,
Yeah.
having role models, having people to kind of work from, and changing the culture internally. So,
Agreed.
I think everything's on the way up. Society, economy, technology. It's all going to be good, Denise.
It is eventually.
Not
Eventually.
Chelsea. Chelsea's on the way down.
Oh no, Frank, my boy Frank, he's going to save us.
No, I think we've made some good signings this summer. I think.
Yes, he has. Yeah.
We'll both reach, Arsenal and Chelsea will reach the promised land of the Champions League.
Wouldn't that be lovely?
I don't think winning the league is any time soon for either of us. I think you're probably slightly close.
I agree. Liverpool and Manchester City have got it pretty much tied up, I think.
That's right, yeah. But things change around. Every dog has his day, as it were. So
They do.
well, Denise, it's been great to speak to you today. Really, really wish you luck. One with the stuff that we're working on for you, but with obviously your job search.
Thank you.
And if you're watching this and you think, wow, Denise could be good within my business, I'm sure that we'll link her into the chat and stuff, so you can kind of reach out directly. But Denise, thanks very much, and have a great day, have a great week. Good luck on the search.
Thank you, David.